me, I celebrate my 100th podcast, a century in a test match. Here, I must tell you that I thank all my supporters, which include primarily the OS tribe of 77, which is my batch of 77 that has encouraged me, my family. And here, a special call out, folks, to the guys who really got me started. Rajiv Khanna, who was our head boy, he really motivated me. Then you have Vijay Parmar, who gave me a lot of technical inputs to improve my output of my cast. Then you have people who call me out regularly: Anil Chaudhary, Rani Rana, Laila. You have Chetan Sharma, who was really encouraging. And I think that that's what helped me to get to this 100th episode. However, today's conversation and talk is not about my usual geopolitical analysis. It's about essentially the state of the democracy. Some of what I'll say may rub some people on the wrong way, but hey, I say this because that's what I feel. It comes from being, firstly, from my school, which was fairly liberal, where religion was really not visible. My being a brat from my father's regiment in the Sindh Horse, which essentially epitomized the cross-cultural and cross-religious connects and structure, where you almost for every function had the Maulvi, the Granthi, the Pandit, and the priest at most functions, and also for my stint in the United States, where I imbibed the democracy and democratic values and what that was all about. And I'd like to take you to a tour through our prayer place, which was set up during my dance time, which shows the liberal thought process of this household and something that we grew up with. More after the break. So this is my Granth Sahib. A picture of Anandpur Sahib is here. Then we have some of our lovely Hindu gods that I follow. That's Balaji, that's Shivji, you have Gobind, you have Guru Nanak here, you have Har Gobind here. You go in here and you have your usually Kishanji and Lakshmi, and then you have my dad's favorite Sai Baba, this from his times, an old Guru Nanak picture again, my grand folks, a Buddha that again delivered to me by my dad, Guru Gobind Singh, and another one of Sri Ram. So that's how it should be actually, folks. As I mentioned earlier, that the first thing that really the democracy and what it was all about is something that I learned when I was in the United States, right? It seems to be in shambles. It just shows how a single man who is a narcissist, an egomaniac and delusional can actually hold the entire democratic system at hostage, right? And you see that with a number of these reports that are coming out, which is amazing. It's already Biden has won the elections technically, where he says Trump attorneys must face disciplinary action. In their complaint, the plaintiffs essentially asked the court for perhaps the most extraordinary relief ever sought in any federal court in connection with an election, said Baton, a Republican-appointed judge, in dismissing a claim brought by attorney Sidney Powell that sought to overturn Georgia's certification of election results that were in Joe Biden's favor. They warned this court to substitute its judgment for that of 2.5 million Georgia voters who voted for Joe Biden, and this I am unwilling to do. And that is an important statement, folks. Then you have efforts to reverse election run into 1887 law. It says President Trump's efforts to reverse the election's results ran into new hurdles Tuesday, known as Safe Harbor Day under federal law. The 1857 law sets a deadline of 6 days before the convening of the Electoral College for states to certify the election results. While the deadline is not mandatory, the law prohibits Congress from undoing the results of states that have met the deadline. So that's 47 of those states have already put it. But look at the bluster and the lies that are being spread by this president, which I think are lies anyway, right? So, and that what it does, it threatens everything. It's a threats against election officials grow. alongside Trump's legal losses. So on one side, he's constantly losing all legal cases. On the other side, is you've got a situation where the people who are performing their duties are being threatened. So here's what he says. Another one. Setting fire to democracy. GOP leaders enable Mr. Trump as he descends from lies to sabotage. Now, here you find all these hanger-on Republicans that are actually, I'm not even sure whether they're worthy of the positions they hold, at least in a democracy, right? Another one by Chidanand Rajghatta. Trump tests boundaries of defeat despite serial setbacks. The US Supreme Court on Tuesday summarily rejected defeated President Trump's effort to overturn election results in Pennsylvania. A majority of Republican lawmakers joined Democrat. Then he says he is now backing a lawsuit filed by Texas on Tuesday to overturn the outcome in 4 states won by Joe Biden in a case effectively that pits Republican states versus Democratic states. In a sense, it's what I would call a coup, a civil war. However, what is important is if Biden is sworn in on the 20th of January, what it will show you is something that is important for a democracy when you have people like him that come and try to usurp the democracy. It's how the institutions hold up. And here, let's call out the institutions that have held strong. One is this federal nature of the Electoral College and the federal nature of certifying results, which means each state is responsible for counting and certifying the results independently and are open to audits. So look at it, Georgia, they've done 3 audits. Compare that to India. You bring up a complaint, the election commission trashes it, right? Because its strings are pulled by the central government. And I think therein lies a story. We might ridicule the United States, but this is something our democracy needs to learn. The other thing is in this whole process, the courts have held strong, whether it is the district courts, the federal court, or now the Supreme Court, which has actually 3 people who have been put there by none other than Trump himself, including Coney Barrett, who has just came in just recently, folks. This is something we need to learn from the US democracy. We can all snigger, we can all laugh at what's happening, but do not despair because the institutions will hold strong, are still holding strong. Let's see and wait for the 20th of January. Cheers. More after the break. Back, folks. So now, how are we doing as a democracy? Well, the first off is obviously the great Bhumi Pujan we did for the new Parliament building and the Central Vista. Is there anything wrong with that? Probably not. Why not? Because if you've been to those offices and probably been to the Parliament, it's probably not unfunctional. It reduces efficiency. It's old, and I've been to these offices. The toilets are in bad shape, and it's a health hazard. It's a fire hazard. Yes, we need to do it. Obviously, maintaining the facades of our old times to preserve our history. However, yeah, we need to do something. However, the pujan that happened, I guess, was a little bit jarring. Why was it jarring? Is obviously it would have been sent a much better message for a multicultural, religious country like India if the pujan had been represented by all faiths. But unfortunately not, sending a message that I'm not sure is the kind of message that we want to send. But hey, that's obviously the message that this government wants to send, but so be it. But what do we have here which I find interesting, and what it says? New parliament symbol of self-reliance, says PM. Well, I'm not sure how a parliament can be a symbol of self-reliance. What is a symbol of self-reliance? Is confidence in ourselves, which I'm finding we are very short of. We are thin-skinned. A better and vibrating economy, but I find that there also we are on the downslide. A strong military, also in some kind of a slippery slope. Institutions not necessarily performing what they should be doing, but hey, who is to say, right? And what he further says is also another thing that kind of I don't know how to take that. A milestone in India's democratic history. I'm not so sure. I think if the Constitution was, this is hardly a milestone, this is only brick and mortar. As soon the world will recognize our country as the mother of democracy. The mother of democracy is the United States. I just showed, because the institutions have helped. If brick and mortar was to make a democracy, a mother of democracy, we've just built one for the for Afghanistan, then they should call themselves mother of democracy. Anyone can get up and make a building, basically Parliament House, and say they are part of no, but that's not democracy. If brick and mortar was to do it, look at the great statue of unity we set up. But is there unity in India? I am not so sure, folks. But how are our institutions, main institutions that are fine, that are actually not really delivering and have a huge space for improvement, right? The first, obviously, is this article from the Armed Forces by Lieutenant General H.S. Panag that really is distressing. He says, CDS Bipin Rawat told Gorakhpur students to rediscover culture but forgot military tradition. He says, and this is interesting, listen, and when people who talk about whether we are military, the standalone institution is getting politicized, really need a wake-up call here. On 4th December, Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat was in Gorakhpur as the chief guest of the inaugural program of the week-long 88th Foundation Day celebration of Maharana Pratap Siksha Parishad at Maharana Pratap Inter College. The event was presided over by Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, Yogi Adityanath. Okay, that General Rawat gave an inspiring speech to the students wherein he urged them to rediscover Indian culture diluted by centuries of foreign rule. I don't see any mention of serving in the army here. Well, I guess that's not a concern, it's just the culture. Early on, 3rd December, after landing at the Gorakhpur airfield in his official aircraft, General Rawat had paid obeisance at the Gorakhnath temple in company of its Mahant Yogi Adityanath. Okay, he says, but 4th December is also celebrated as the Indian Navy Day commemorating its attack on Karachi Harbour in India-Pakistan World War 1971. It is traditional for the service chiefs to lay together wreaths at the National War Memorial on Service Day. Since 1st January, the CDS, as numero uno of the armed forces and responsible for tri-service integration, leads the ceremony. However, such was the importance given to the Gorakhnath Mutt, even the CDS gave the Indian Day a miss. Yeah. What does this conduct of the CDS, what does the conduct of the CDS, due to ignorance or indiscretion, tell us about the state of affairs of our armed forces? First, well-established traditions, particularly with respect to tri-service integrations, are being given short shrift. Second, it's a violation of rules, regulations and laws of armed forces. And third, it compromises the secular political status of the armed forces. Now let's do a little read down on the Supreme Court, the other institute I think that is having trouble. A tale of evasion, deference and inconsistency, as says Gautam Bhatia. The most glaring is that of judicial evasion. The Supreme Court simply refuses to hear constitutional challenge to far-reaching state action, sometime for years. And one of the most glaring one in this is by virtue of the electoral bond scheme. Thousands of crores of anonymous corporate donations have been funneled to political parties, setting up an entire system of opaque electoral funding. The electoral bond scheme was challenged in 2018, immediately after it was brought into force. Multiple state elections and a general elections have passed, but the case has not been heard, and the former Chief Justice and now Member of Parliament, now you know why, Ranjan Gogoi, when asked about this case, brazenly said that he didn't remember it. Okay, now let's see. Judicial evasion, okay, is accompanied judicial deference. Much has been made of the SC's uncritical acceptance of the Solicitor General's statement that no migrants were walking on the road in the immediate aftermath of the pandemic. But this is only one example of a broader trend in which the court fails to perform even its basic task of scrutinizing the government's claims during litigation, which are really apparent. And finally, much has been made about the alacrity with which Arnab Goswami was granted relief by the Supreme Court and the fate of other litigants who have not been quite as sympathetic to the government. These three features, folks, judicial evasion, judicial deference, and judicial inconsistency, have become staples of the system over the last few years. So our Supreme Court is just absolutely not sending the right picture, unlike the Supreme Court and the justice system that's held up in the US, folks. Jai Hind.